Hey everyone, CWD Music here. I'm CWD, and this is going to be in addition to the weekly album roundup for June 3rd. This time, instead of doing a whole month of albums that I've listened to, I'm going to do these on a weekly basis, just go through a good chunk of albums that I listened to that came out last Friday, and just going to give you my brief opinions about it. Also, Fleet Fox's new album is streaming on NPR right now. I'm going to try to maybe leave a link in the description for that. You should check that out, because from what I heard so far, it's promising. It's their first in 6 years, and I'm going to be reviewing it next week. So anticipate that coming up soon. Anyway, on that note, let's get this on the road. Sounds like a Roger Waters album, but it more so sounds like he's going a little further back into that late 70s, early 80s Pink Floyd period, which I like. That's actually my favorite era of Pink Floyd. He just does it really well, and I'm pleased with it. It's pretty accessible, and it's not exactly boundary pushing by any means for Roger Waters standards, for Pink Floyd standards, but regardless, if you are a Pink Floyd fan, if you are a Roger Waters fan, you'll definitely dig this album, since I most certainly dig this album. Nigel Godrich has produced this album, and he does wonders with the mixing and the production and all that. He definitely has a lot to say about international politics, as well as just the world at large, which is still pretty refreshing as to this day, which is pretty impressive at this point of Roger Waters' career. I was really curious about this album since David Longstreth just put out an album as Dirty Projectors back in February, and I was wondering what the ex-member of Dirty Projectors, as well as the ex-girlfriend of David Longstreth, would have to say about things of that nature. And not a lot to report per se in terms of that note, but it's still a pretty decent album. There's a lot of deja vu as it relates to what the Dirty Projectors just dropped, as well as what the Dirty Projectors have made in the past, but it makes sense when you learn that Amber Coffman not only was a member of Dirty Projectors, but also the fact that David Longstreth, interestingly enough, co-produced this album. So if you are a Dirty Projectors fan, if you're trying to figure out what's going on with the Dirty Projectors alumni, then definitely check this out, because you'll probably like what you hear. Sounds like a modern-day shoegaze dream pop sort of album. There's a few little experimental moments here and there that I did like, but yeah, I just didn't really feel like returning to it all that much. It's definitely a good album, I just wasn't that crazy about it, unfortunately. If you are a fan of Beach Fossils already, if you are a fan of new gaze, aka modern day shoegaze, as well as dream pop, then definitely check this out. You'll like this a lot more than I did. I was kind of curious about this thing, since this is a guy from Syria, and there's a lot going on in Syria right now. And he definitely was kind of interesting to me with what he does with the electronic music and dance music and all that. And while the rhythms are really good, I just didn't find much in terms of a solid premise to any of the tracks. I can't speak the language or understand the language, obviously, but he definitely sings particularly well, at least over this album. Just ultimately, I'd found a sort of cultural disconnect between me and this thing. But still, it definitely is a solid release. It definitely is a good album. So if you are interested in what kind of music this guy makes, this sort of electronic music with like a Syrian Oak edge to it, then definitely check this out. This sounded like a combination of The Who's Quadrophenia to a conceptual degree, and it sounded like stuff Arcade Fire probably already put out, and it sounds like stuff that came out of the 80s in terms of pop music. I just don't know what Jack Antonoff was thinking with this album, because it just sounds slightly all over the place, but still maintaining a sort of cohesiveness overall. There just wasn't enough tracks for me that I was head over heels for. There's definitely maybe a couple, but regardless, it doesn't really save the album. they've made cock metal, yay! But this is certainly a practice in instrumental prowess and energy and all that for these guys. I'm a big fan of Ben Kohler since he has been drumming for Converge for so long, but as far as Mutoid Man, not really that fascinated with it. I definitely dig the energy that they put in, but it just sounded like a weird fusion of early Tool and Pink era Boris and a few other things that didn't really maintain a sort of identity about it for me. I did not like this thing. I didn't like it at all. It sounded like overly indulgent teenage beanie bopper stuff that is trying to get really sultry, it's trying to be raunchy, it's trying to be dirty, but it just comes off as awkward and pretty painlessly boring in a sense. I mean, there's a whole song where they talk about oral sex and it doesn't sound all that appealing to me. I like Quavo, but I did not like him on that track at all. I don't get the hype behind this shallow, indulgent, do whatever the fuck I want attitude that women like Halsey and women like Lana Del Rey have got going on for them. But if this is the music they want to make, that's perfectly fine with me. I just don't particularly like it. Critics have been hating on this thing because of just how experimental the album is. I get that it's not exactly stylistically consistent, but it's still good. Not great by any means, but good. I just wish that if there was more tracks to this thing that were a little more solid, then maybe I would definitely love this album, but unfortunately Al J have not given me enough meat to what they're doing for me to completely be head over heels for it. But I do like this thing quite a bit. If you're an Alt J fan, you're going to check this out. If you're a big fan of like this experimental pop, this indie rock, indie folk, indie rock thing that definitely has a lot going for them in terms of ideas, then definitely check this album out. You'll like it. I read somewhere that this is the kind of music Dan Auerbach wanted to make since the beginning, and I'm definitely pleased and proud of this guy for finally realizing his dream, since he pretty much came from, with Pat Carney, he and him started the Black Keys, and he pretty much started from just recording lo-fi blues and garage rock in a basement that they would be kicked out of after Thick Freakness. And now he's doing these well-recorded kind of country rock, kind of alternative rock, kind of old school rock type thing albums that, while yeah, I don't necessarily care all that much for, I'm still proud of that Dan is at where he's at now. And if you're a big Black Keys fan, if you're a Dan Auerbach fan, this is definitely worth a couple of tries. I just wish that when Dan went solo, he got more experimental than what it is he's doing now, because I wasn't that crazy about it. He could still sing well. He still definitely has the guitar chops, and he definitely is able to write okay tunes, but there's nothing much about what he's doing that makes me like head over heels for it. I did not really care for this thing. I mean, it's not bad, it's just homogenous as all get out. It all sounds the same, this sort of low-key alternative rock thing that occasionally has little freakouts near the tail end, just all sounds the same. Maybe there's something in the lyrics that I'm missing, but the instrumental backbone didn't really switch it up all that much. And this album is like 53 minutes long. It's too long. It just feels like a chore to get through. Near the end of it, I was like, alright, I'm feeling a little sad and depressed about this thing. Let's just get it going now so I can do something else. I'm sorry, I just didn't really like this thing at all. It's not bad, it's just okay, I guess. It's just not that inventful, or it's not that boundary pushing, or it's doesn't really try to be more than what it already is, I guess. I don't know. So those were my thoughts on the albums that I listened to that came out last Friday. What did you think of any of these? Did you like any of them? Did you dislike any of them? What were some albums that I missed that came out last Friday? Because I did probably miss a couple, and I'm thinking about including those into the next roundup if I did miss them, if I get a chance to listen to them. And what did you think of those projects? CWD Music here, signing off.